The Galactic Council chamber was silent. Too silent. Dozens of alien delegates sat in their hovering seats, their eyes fixed on the enormous holographic display at the center of the hall. The image showed a small blue and gray planet surrounded by a thin halo of satellites and energy grids. Earth, the species they once dismissed as barely spacefaring. Yet that day, every sensor, every probe, and every commander in orbit had reported something extraordinary, something terrifying. Humanity was changing. The Council's analysts had detected it first. A fleet of raiders had entered the Sol system, unregistered, ruthless scavengers from the Outer Rim. They were supposed to be unstoppable. But before the Council could even decide whether to intervene, the human defense grid had gone dark. Every signal, every transmission, every broadcast, silence. It was as if the entire planet had vanished from the galactic network. Then seconds later, one of the alien raider fleets simply ceased to exist. No distress call, no debris. Just gone. The Council demanded answers. What they saw next would haunt them forever. From the far side of the chamber, the hologram zoomed in on a single ship, black, angular, glowing faintly red along its hull markings. A Terran vessel. Not a battleship, not a dreadnought, but something older. Smaller. A relic of a forgotten war, yet its movements defied logic. It didn't glide like the Council's ships. It lunged, darting through the void with animal precision. Its thrusters flared in short, violent bursts like the heartbeat of a predator. At first, the Council assumed it was remote-controlled. No sane pilot would push a ship that hard. Then came the telemetry feed from an intercepted human channel. Heartbeat monitors, neural spikes, combat data. The humans weren't just fighting. They were feeling. The neural readings looked chaotic. Adrenaline, fear, focus, all surging together. One Council scientist gasped as she realized what it was. "It's not panic," she whispered. "It's instinct. They're hunting." Every eye in the room turned toward her. Hunting? In a battle against superior technology? Impossible. Yet the humans weren't retreating. They weren't calculating optimal maneuvers or conserving fuel. They were adapting on the spot. Every move they made was faster than the last, sharper, more precise. Their biosigns spiked beyond normal combat ranges. The ship's AI logged it as an override state. The Council later gave it a name the humans never used: Predator Mode. Across the galaxy, billions watched the live transmission. The Council had authorized public observation, assuming it would show another human defeat, another reason to keep Earth under containment protocols. Instead, what unfolded looked like evolution unfolding in real time. The Terran ship's hull shifted, its reactive armor rearranging mid-flight as if responding to muscle memory. Its targeting systems ignored radar jamming and moved based on predictive instinct. It wasn't logic. It was intuition. Machine and human perfectly synchronized in survival. A low rumble filled the chamber. Not from the speakers, but from the delegates themselves. Uneasy vibrations from hundreds of throats evolved for different atmospheres. One of the elder envoys, whose species had ruled the stars for millennia, muttered something that translated simply as, "They are not supposed to be able to do this." Another delegate leaned forward, trembling. "They said the humans were impulsive, emotional, primitive." He paused, voice cracking. But what if that's their advantage? Outside the Council hall, galactic news feeds began replaying the footage frame by frame. Every ship in orbit around Earth had gone silent, yes, but not dead. They were synchronizing. Tens of thousands of independent vessels, drones, and defense units began moving as if they shared one mind. No central command, no hierarchy. Just instinctive coordination. Each one adjusting to the other's rhythm like wolves circling their prey. "Predator mode," whispered the Council chair, her crest trembling under the soft lights. "Is this biological? Or programmed?" No one could answer. The humans themselves didn't seem to know. In the intercepted audio, their commander sounded almost calm. "Target locked. Trust the instinct. Move with it." Those words spread like wildfire across the Council networks, dissected by scientists and strategists who couldn't understand how such primitive commands could override fear itself. Then, the impossible happened. The Raider flagship, 3 kilometers long, armed with plasma cannons that could melt moons, fired directly at the human vessel. The energy beam should have vaporized it instantly. Instead, the Terran ship disappeared from sensors entirely. For 5 seconds, no system could locate it. When it reappeared, it was behind the raider. Its hull was glowing white-hot, edges bending light. It rammed through the enemy's shield, tore the ship apart, and emerged on the other side without slowing down. The room filled with horrified silence. One by one, Council monitors began blinking with new alerts. The entire human network had reactivated. Signals were broadcasting again, but encrypted beyond comprehension. The message header was simple, written in Terran Standard. Observation over. The humans had shut down their planetary defenses during the attack only to reboot them manually afterward. A deliberate act. A test. The council chair rose from her seat. Are we certain they weren't aware we were watching? The analyst swallowed. Madam Chair, they looked straight into our observation drone before it went offline. That sentence froze the room. The implication was clear. The humans had known about the council's surveillance the entire time and had chosen to show them. Not a weapon test. A demonstration. A warning. Outside the chamber, hundreds of messages flooded in from military observers in allied worlds. Requesting clarification. Confirming anomaly. Do we engage? But the chair couldn't respond. All she could do was replay the final frame of the transmission. The human pilot's face lit by red emergency lights, eyes focused, unblinking. No rage, no fear, just calm determination. And behind that calm, something older, something primal. As the feed looped again, one of the younger delegates whispered the thought that everyone else was afraid to say. If this is what humans become when cornered, what happens when they choose to hunt? The question lingered in the air like a shadow that no light could erase. The chair slowly sat back down, her voice barely audible. Then we will have to pray. They never turned that instinct toward us. But even as she spoke, the council's long-range sensors picked up something new. Deep beyond the edge of Sol, multiple human ships were vanishing from standard detection grids. Not destroyed, cloaked. Their last recorded heading pointed outward, away from Earth. Every delegate turned toward the screen again, hearts pounding, minds racing with fear and fascination. The humans weren't defending anymore. They were moving, somewhere in that vast black silence. The first coordinated human fleet had just entered stealth formation. The Council didn't realize it yet. But the moment humanity's predator mode activated, the balance of the galaxy shifted forever. What began as a defense had awakened something evolution itself had tried to forget. The instinct of a hunter that no civilization could ever predict. And as the holographic display flickered and went dark, one final message pulsed faintly in the human encryption feed. Phase 2. Observation complete. Pursuit begins. The council chamber fell completely silent. The following hours after the council's broadcast felt like the longest in galactic history. Every empire, colony, and trade alliance replayed the footage again and again. Humans entering predator mode, their ships moving like living creatures, guided not by code but by instinct. The galaxy had seen powerful civilizations before. They had witnessed weapons that split moons, fleets that stretched across star systems, but never a species that fought like this. The humans didn't just react to danger, they became it. Across hundreds of observation outposts, reports began to pour in. Deep-range scanners detected human signatures vanishing from known space, moving in patterns that didn't match any recognized hyperspace routes. Some believed they were retreating, hiding back in their home system. Others suspected something far more deliberate, that humanity was spreading out silently, marking its territory without announcing it. In the center of the Galactic Council, researchers tried to make sense of the data. Dr. Ilvin, one of the oldest xenopsychologists in the galaxy, leaned over the glowing holotable. His scaled fingers traced the lines of human brain activity recorded during the predator mode event. The readings looked almost impossible, neural coherence that reached beyond normal consciousness. They're not just reacting, he said softly. They're connecting, mind to machine, emotion to motion. Impossible, another scientist muttered. No species can synchronize that perfectly. It would burn the mind, Dr. Ilvin shook his head, unless their species was built for it. Humans evolved in chaos, storms, predators, endless survival. They never stopped adapting. Their bodies may look fragile, but their minds are built for change. On Earth, the silence continued. The humans had shut down external communications after the battle. No diplomatic channels, no public statements. Only a single encoded message had reached the Council archives. Observation concluded. Await contact. But contact never came. Every attempt to reach them was met with static interference. The Council began to argue among themselves. Were the humans preparing for war or simply defending themselves? Did they even know what they had triggered inside their own systems? Rumors began spreading across the galaxy's outer sectors. Freighter captains claimed to see shadows in deep space. Silent ships with no transponders, no heat signatures. Entire pirate fleets vanished without distress signals. Stations along uninhabited trade routes reported flickers of unknown energy bursts, short and clean, as if someone were testing stealth weapons. And always the last sensor readings would show the same thing, a red pulse shaped like an eye. Back at the council chamber, the chair convened a classified session. Only 12 were present, the most powerful minds of the galaxy. They watched the replay once more, the human ship piercing through the Raider flagship. The chair's voice was steady but heavy. We once believed humanity to be unpredictable. We were wrong. They are calculated in ways we don't yet understand. The Valtor representative, a being with skin that shimmered like molten silver, tapped a claw against the table. They can't have developed this alone. Someone must have given them access to ancient technology. Perhaps, the chair replied. But who would arm a species known for emotional volatility? No one answered. Every species in the chamber had once underestimated humanity. They had labeled them as unrefined, dangerous, temporary. Yet humans had survived everything the universe threw at them: extinction events, wars, famine, cosmic disasters. Their resilience wasn't strategy. It was instinct. In the shadows of the chamber, a holographic projection flickered to life. A small team of intelligence officers stood by, transmitting from a secure observation post near Jupiter. Their commander spoke with urgency. We have recovered partial recordings from the human fleet's tactical network. What we found, it doesn't match any known military protocol. The council leaned forward as the recording played. It wasn't filled with commands or battle codes. It was voices. Human voices. Calm, steady, and precise. Follow the pulse. Breathe with the rhythm. Eyes open. No hesitation. Feel the machine. Trust the motion. The words sounded more like meditation than war. Yet the effect was lethal efficiency. The synchronization wasn't forced, it was voluntary. The humans weren't being controlled by AI, they were becoming part of it. Dr. Ilvin spoke again, his tone dark. Their technology responds to emotional frequency. It doesn't calculate commands. It feels them, this predator mode. It's the natural result of their evolution merging with their machines. One of the younger delegates turned pale. You're saying they've found a way to weaponize emotion? Ilvin nodded. Exactly. Fear becomes focus. Anger becomes precision. Instinct becomes strategy. The chamber went still. No empire in recorded history had ever achieved that kind of unity. Most relied on logic-based AIs, cold and efficient. But humans built systems that learned from their chaos. Machines that reflected their hearts, not just their thoughts. Meanwhile, outside the council's reach, something was happening within Sul. The planet's surface was calm, almost too calm. But under the clouds, beneath the cities, deep in the arcologies of old Earth, vast underground structures had awakened. Long-hidden facilities powered up after decades of dormancy. Thousands of dormant ships, once prototypes, began preparing for launch. Every system pulsed with synchronized light, red, steady, alive. Inside one of those command bunkers, a lone human officer stood before a wall of screens. His face was expressionless, eyes fixed on the slowly forming fleet above the planet. They watched us, he said quietly. They measured us like prey, a voice replied from the comm. And now? He exhaled, watching as the first Predator-class ship lifted from the launch bay, its black hull catching the sunlight. Now they'll learn what happens when the prey starts hunting back. Far from Earth, deep in neutral space, the Council continued their analysis. The data pointed to one terrifying truth. The humans weren't developing new weapons. They were awakening something old, something that had always been inside them. The Predator mode wasn't created in a lab. It was born from the same instinct that had driven humanity to cross oceans, climb mountains, and reach for the stars. It wasn't programming. It was evolution remembering itself. The council chair finally spoke, her voice barely audible. Prepare a containment protocol. If humanity decides to expand, we must be ready. But as her words echoed through the chamber, a low hum began to fill the room. The lights flickered, sensors glitched, and the holographic map changed. A new signal appeared on the edge of known space, unregistered, untraceable, moving faster than any council ship could track. Its trajectory was impossible to predict, as if it was rewriting its path in real time. The technicians froze. "That can't be right," one whispered. It's reading human." The chair's blood ran cold. "From where?" The technician looked up slowly. "From beyond our border systems. They're already out there." The revelation sent a shiver through every delegate. The humans hadn't just survived the attack, they'd learned from it, adapted. And now they were exploring beyond the galaxy's controlled space, unmonitored, unseen. The Council had no idea how many ships were out there or what their intentions were. The Valter delegate hissed, "You said we were safe. You said they were confined to their system." The chair didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the hologram, a red pulse expanding outward, spreading like a ripple across the stars. In the following days, reports multiplied. Mining outposts went silent. Smugglers spoke of unseen ships that tracked them through asteroid belts. Patrol drones vanished, their memory cores found drifting, wiped clean except for one line of Terran code. Predator mode active. The galaxy had always seen humans as unpredictable. But predictable or not, they were awake now. Every empire began tightening borders, moving fleets, recalling exploration teams. Fear spread faster than fact. Some called for diplomacy, others for preemptive strikes. But none of them could ignore what had been seen in that transmission, the look in human eyes, calm and certain as if they knew something the galaxy didn't. Back on Earth, the officer stood beneath the stars, the reflection of distant lights shimmering across his visor. "They think we're dangerous," he said to the unseen figure beside him. "But they have no idea what we're capable of." "Then it's time to remind them," came the reply. He turned toward the horizon where the first fleet shimmered into the void. "Let's show the galaxy," he murmured, "why humans were never meant to be prey." The ships vanished into the darkness, leaving only the faint echo of a heartbeat, a sound that carried across the stars, marking the beginning of something the Council could never predict. And somewhere, in the silent archives of the Council's central system, an automated alert triggered without anyone noticing. Phase 2 confirmed. Observation complete. Pursuit authorized. The silence that followed across the galaxy was not peace, it was fear disguised as quiet. Every major civilization began scanning their borders twice as often, doubling patrols, reinforcing trade routes. Yet no one could find the humans. They were gone from all known star charts, their communication frequencies reduced to whispers and coded static. The Council called it strategic retreat, but deep down everyone knew it was something else. Humanity wasn't hiding. They were preparing. In the vast void between sectors, small things began to change. Outposts that had once been under constant pirate threat reported unexpected protection. Patrol ships found the remains of raider fleets neatly dismantled and drifting, as if dissected by precision strikes. The mysterious cleanup operations bore no signatures, no transponder codes, no AI patterns. Just perfect efficiency. Those who dared to analyze the energy traces found one familiar frequency among the debris: human. At the same time, a quiet unease spread through the Council itself. The delegates were losing trust in each other. Each believed that someone among them might have already made secret contact with the humans. Rumors grew that certain factions were negotiating in secret, hoping to gain access to whatever predator mode truly was. The Council chair tried to maintain unity, but fear had already started breaking it apart from within. Dr. Ilvin had been granted limited access to the recovered human transmission archives. He spent endless nights replaying fragments, decoding tone patterns and neural rhythms. He discovered something alarming. The predator mode wasn't triggered by anger or fear, but by a distinct emotional frequency found only in extreme focus and empathy. The more humans cared about protecting something, the stronger the signal became. They didn't fight out of rage. They fought out of connection. It was their unity, their shared emotion that transformed them. He presented the findings in a private council meeting. The room stayed still after he spoke. "They don't activate predator mode to destroy," Ilvin said quietly. "They do it to survive, to shield what they love, The chair looked unconvinced. And if their definition of protection extends beyond their system? Ilvin's gaze fell to the glowing stars on the map. Then the galaxy becomes their hunting ground. Far away in a quiet system on the edge of neutral space, a mining colony stumbled upon something extraordinary. Their deep core drills uncovered a buried vessel, black, angular, ancient, yet alive with faint energy lines. It bore human design elements, but far more advanced than anything known. The workers who approached it described feeling a strange pulse as though the ship recognized them. The colony's governor sent an emergency signal to the council. But before they could respond, the transmission cut off. When the council dispatched a recovery team days later, the site was empty. The colony's population gone. The only trace was a single message burned into the main communications console. We answered the call. The council began to panic. Systems close to human space started reporting similar disappearances, small, silent, without conflict. Entire fleets would vanish from scanners for hours, then return, claiming they saw nothing unusual. Yet every time they came back, they carried faint energy signatures of unknown technology embedded into their hulls. It was as if humanity had begun quietly reshaping the galaxy, one piece at a time. Back on Earth, the once silent planet was in motion. Massive orbital structures drifted around its surface, glinting like mirrors in the sunlight. These weren't weapons, they were relays, extending the reach of the Terran network far beyond its old limits. From a command station beneath the Atlantic, human operators monitored the expansion, each activation synchronized perfectly with the next, like heartbeat after heartbeat forming a rhythm across the stars. In one of the observation decks, a technician stood watching the planet's glowing horizon. "Do you think the council will understand what we're doing?" she asked. The commander beside her shook his head. "They'll see it as a threat. They always have. They don't realize this isn't conquest. It's preparation. Preparation for what?" He didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the stars, where a faint red pulse flickered like a distant warning light. For the thing coming after us. Meanwhile, within the council's hidden archives, another subplot was quietly unfolding. A small intelligence unit known as the Horizon Division had been assigned to infiltrate human communications. They had been operating in secret for years, collecting fragments of Terran transmissions and decoding patterns that seemed more like music than data. One of their agents, a young linguist named Thalen, made a chilling discovery. The human signal wasn't random, it was layered. Every encrypted burst carried not just words but emotion signatures, woven into harmonic frequencies. It wasn't just a message, it was a conversation, transmitted directly between human minds and their ships. Thalen sent his findings to his superior, who immediately locked them away. "This doesn't leave this room," the officer said. "If the council learns humans have developed emotional synchronization across species barriers, we'll never contain them." But Thalen couldn't stop thinking about it. He replayed the recordings in private, and every time he felt something he couldn't explain. Calm, focus, purpose. The signal wasn't meant to threaten. It was meant to connect. He began to wonder if humanity had evolved beyond isolation, finding a way to unify thought and feeling through technology. Maybe predator mode wasn't just a weapon. It was evolution's next step. Out in the uncharted sectors, the first real conflict began to take shape. A council reconnaissance fleet stumbled upon a region of space now designated as Dark Sector Theta. The entire area had become saturated with faint human frequencies, impossible to track. When they sent probes, every signal was returned, clean, untouched, but the visual data showed only one thing: empty space. Yet when enhanced under quantum resolution, faint outlines appeared. Hundreds of ships, maybe thousands, waiting. The fleet commander immediately ordered retreat. But the ships didn't move. Their engines refused to ignite. One by one, the systems flickered and died. The communication screens came alive, not with voices, but with words written in Terran Standard. "Stand down. You are trespassing." The fleet vanished minutes later. Only fragments of data were recovered. A single frame of a human ship passing silently through the wreckage, not firing a single shot, only watching. When the council received the report, panic erupted. "This is invasion," shouted one delegate. "They're claiming uncharted territory." But the chair stayed quiet. She had read the final transmission carefully. The words were deliberate. Not attacking, not destroying, just trespassing. It meant humans had drawn invisible borders, boundaries the Council didn't even know existed. Dr. Ilvin watched her reaction closely. They aren't expanding for power, he said. They're organizing, defining what's theirs. And if that includes space already claimed by others, then we'll have to decide whether we want peace, Ilvin said softly, or survival. In the following weeks, more evidence surfaced that humanity was coordinating with certain outcast species, the ones abandoned by the Council long ago. Disgraced colonies, fringe traders, and exiled engineers began disappearing, only to reappear weeks later aboard unknown ships, wearing Terran insignias. Humanity wasn't conquering planets. They were building alliances, quietly, patiently with those who had been forgotten. The galaxy's balance had started to tilt and no one knew which way it would fall. Some saw the humans as saviors, others as an unstoppable threat, but none of them understood the truth, that humanity had not declared war. They were preparing for something greater, something the Council itself had unknowingly awakened. And as the last Council session of that cycle ended, a quiet alert pulsed through the galactic network. A message traced to an unknown source carrying one unmistakable line written in calm Terran script. Predator mode remains dormant, until provoked. The delegates stared at it, none daring to speak. Because deep down, every one of them already knew something had changed forever. The galaxy was no longer watching humanity. Humanity was watching them. The galaxy held its breath. Every system, every colony, every outpost waited for the moment when the humans would make their next move. But nothing came. For weeks, there was only silence. No transmissions, no fleet movements, no sign of aggression. That silence was worse than war. Because deep down, everyone knew that humanity wasn't idle. They were watching, learning, preparing. In the great chamber of the Galactic Council, the tension was unbearable. Delegates argued day and night, their voices echoing through the vast halls. Some demanded an immediate military response, others pleaded for negotiation. The chair listened to them all but spoke little. She knew what they were all thinking, yet afraid to admit. If humans truly mastered this predator mode, there was no way to contain them. They could be anywhere at any time, and no one would ever know until it was too late. Reports kept arriving from the edges of explored space. Fleets disappearing without a trace. Stations found abandoned. Systems shut down cleanly as if by command. There were no signs of destruction, just absence. The only thing left behind was a faint red pulse in the scanners, the mark of human technology, a silent reminder that they had been there. One night, the council chair stood alone before the great star map. The galaxy glimmered before her, thousands of systems, each shining like a grain of sand. Slowly, one by one, the lights began dimming, not disappearing, but shifting to red. "They're not invading," she murmured. "They're surrounding us." Dr. Ilvin entered the chamber quietly, his face drawn and pale. "It's worse than that," he said softly. "They're coordinating something across multiple systems. We've intercepted fragments of communication patterns. Whatever they're building, it's bigger than any fleet. What kind of construction could span that much space?" Ilvin hesitated. "Not a fleet, a network." He projected the data onto the chamber's central hologram. Lines of energy stretched between star systems like veins of light, converging around one focal point, Earth. The pattern pulsed in rhythm, slow and steady like a heartbeat. They're linking something together. And if I'm right, once it's complete, it could synchronize the entire human fleet into one living system. The chair felt her throat tighten. "You mean every ship, every pilot, one mind?" Ilvin nodded. "One instinct, one will." Across the galaxy, rumors spread faster than light. Some believed the humans were building a superweapon. Others whispered about an ancient code, a forgotten technology rediscovered. Pirate groups tried to infiltrate human space and were never heard from again. Even the most powerful empires began pulling their ships back, afraid to enter Terran zones. And through it all, humanity said nothing. No threats. No warnings. Just silence and precision. In the shadow of a dying star, an old warship drifted among the ruins of a forgotten battle. Inside, a single human officer sat at a console, watching streams of data flow across the screens. Around him, the faint hum of synchronized systems pulsed like a living creature. "Are the nodes online?" he asked calmly. "Almost," came the reply from another voice. "Outer sectors are stable. Council sensors haven't detected the link." "Good. Keep it that way. We're not ready to be seen yet." The officer's gaze turned toward the stars. "They think we're preparing for war. They're wrong. We're preparing for survival." In the Council's secret chambers, however, panic was spreading. One of the younger delegates, desperate for answers, revealed classified information. Human operatives had been found on Council worlds. Not soldiers, but scientists, engineers, diplomats posing as traitors. Quietly, they'd been collecting data, scanning infrastructure, mapping weaknesses. Humanity was already inside the walls. The revelation sparked chaos. "They're infiltrating us," someone shouted. "They'll dismantle our systems from within." But others argued differently. "Maybe they're trying to warn us. Maybe something worse is coming." The council chair ended the debate with a single command. "Enough. Prepare the fleets. If they want to watch us, let them see what happens when the galaxy unites." Within days, the largest armada in galactic history began to assemble. Thousands of ships representing dozens of species converged near the border of human space, engines glowing bright against the dark. It was meant to be a show of strength, a message that the galaxy would not be intimidated. Yet even as the fleet formed, a strange unease filled every bridge. The stars around them seemed to dim, as if something vast was stirring in the void. Then came the anomaly. A small probe detected a gravitational shift near the edge of the Sol system. The readings were unlike anything recorded before: smooth, rhythmic, organic. The pattern was unmistakable. A pulse, the same red frequency that marked every human presence. The fleet's sensors synchronized, and in the space of a heartbeat, thousands of readings appeared at once. Human ships. They emerged not from hyperspace, but from the dark itself. Hundreds, maybe thousands of vessels, materializing without light or sound. Their hulls glowed faintly with that same red energy, each one shaped like a predator poised to strike. They didn't move in formation, they moved in rhythm, perfect, terrifying rhythm. The Council fleet opened wide-band communication channels. "This is the Galactic Council fleet. You are entering restricted space. Identify yourselves." No response. The human ships simply drifted closer, silent, their hulls reflecting the distant stars like black mirrors. Then, as if choreographed, the entire fleet rotated in perfect unison, every ship turning its nose toward the Council armada. No weapons charged, no shields raised. They just watched. The tension was unbearable. Every captain's hand hovered over the trigger. The fleet's AI systems warned of proximity risk, but none dared move first. Even the slightest twitch could start a war. Finally, a single human transmission broke through the silence. It was short, clear, and calm. "This is not your war." The words sent chills through every bridge. Before anyone could respond, the human fleet began to expand, ships spreading outward, surrounding the entire armada like a closing circle. Still, no shots were fired, but the message was clear. They had the council surrounded and they weren't afraid. Inside the council chamber, the delegates shouted over each other. Some demanded immediate retreat, others called for a preemptive strike. The chair slammed her hand down. "Stop. We act rashly. We lose everything. They want us to react. Don't give them that." Dr. Ilvin studied the feed closely, analyzing every flicker of motion. "Look at them," he whispered. "No aggression. They're scanning us." "Scanning us for what?" He hesitated, his voice shaking. "To see if we're worth saving." The chamber fell silent. The implication was too much to bear. Were the humans preparing to judge the council? Or were they searching for something else entirely. Then the power in the chamber flickered. The hologram wavered and reset. A new signal had entered the Council's network, directly from human transmission lines. The message displayed across every screen in the galaxy. Observation complete. Synchronization achieved. Every system began to glitch at once. Council ships in orbit reported navigation failures, communication interference, sudden magnetic fluctuations. It wasn't an attack. It was synchronization. The human network had just connected to the galactic one. In the void, the human fleet began to pulse brighter, the rhythm accelerating. The ship's energy signatures merged into one colossal wave of light that rippled across the stars. It wasn't weapon fire. It was activation. A galactic heartbeat. The chair's voice trembled. "What are they doing?" Dr. Ilvin turned toward her, realization dawning in his eyes. "They're waking something up." "Something?" He nodded slowly, voice barely above a whisper. "Not a weapon. A defense system. Something ancient. Something they found buried beneath their own world." The chamber's lights dimmed completely, leaving only the red glow from the hologram. Across the galaxy, the pulse grew stronger, shaking satellites, bending energy fields, distorting space itself. And within that crimson light, the faint outline of something enormous began to take shape behind the human fleet. Whatever it wasn't man-made. It was older, and it was alive. Every heart in the Council froze. The humans had not come to destroy. They had come to unleash. The shadow behind the human fleet grew until it filled the entire observation field. It was vast, so large that the Council's scanners couldn't define its borders. Every spectrum reading came back in contradiction. Some claimed it was a construct, others said it was organic. But every reading agreed on one thing: it wasn't dormant anymore. The pulse of red light rippled from the humans and into the colossal shape behind them, as if something ancient had just been awakened from its sleep. The Council fleet began to back away slowly, their captains shouting overlapping orders, but the space around them shimmered. Gravity itself started to bend. The humans didn't move to attack. They simply held position, their fleet glowing brighter, forming a barrier of light before the massive being they had just awakened. Then through the static and chaos came a human transmission. Low, steady, and clear. "Do not interfere. It's not aimed at you." The chair leaned closer to the screen, her voice trembling. "What do they mean, not aimed at us?" But before anyone could answer, the energy reading surged again. The colossal shadow behind the human ships began to unfold. Massive panels of metallic bone and light, wings that stretched wider than entire moons. The data feeds went wild. It was no ship. It was a living construct, a hybrid of biology and engineering, a being of forgotten origin. Dr. Ilvin whispered what everyone else feared to say aloud. "It's not human, but it's responding to them. They've bonded with it." The chamber fell into stunned silence. If the humans had truly awakened something like this, something older than the Council itself, it meant they had found power beyond imagination. But there was more. The outer monitoring stations picked up another anomaly, faint signals echoing from deep space far beyond known galactic borders. Not human, not Council. Something else was answering the pulse. Ilvin turned pale. "That's the second frequency." "What second frequency?" the chair demanded. "The one hidden beneath the human code. I told you predator mode was never just combat instinct. It was a response, a defense mechanism. Something triggered it." He gestured toward the projection where the data streams intertwined in spirals of red and gold. "They didn't create this power. They activated it because something else, something older, stirred first." The Council erupted in panic. Some delegates shouted for full withdrawal. Others wanted to strike before it was too late. But none of them could look away from the image of the enormous being behind the human fleet. Its shape flickered through the hologram, as though it existed across multiple dimensions at once. And as it shifted, it emitted low vibrations, deep harmonic tones that shook the entire council hall. It wasn't a weapons hum. It sounded like breathing. On the edge of the Sol system, the Council's forward fleet sent a final transmission before all contact was lost. The captain's voice was strained but composed. "We thought we were watching the humans, but they're not the center of this. They're guarding it, something buried within their home system, beneath their own planet's orbit. It's not new. It's been here, waiting. Then the transmission cut. Static. Silence. And then, just for a moment, every communication system in the galaxy picked up the same sound. A single human heartbeat. The Council's networks crashed instantly. Every AI went into lockdown. When the systems rebooted, new data appeared on their main feeds, coordinates spreading across the galaxy, marked in red pulses. Dozens of systems, hundreds, each one synchronized to the same rhythm. Humanity wasn't expanding outward anymore. They were activating something old across the stars, something they didn't build but had inherited. Dr. Ilvin's voice trembled as he studied the data. They found remnants, old installations, hidden beneath planetary crusts and asteroid belts. Ancient defense systems, maybe even consciousnesses. Whatever this predator network is, it predates every civilization we know. The chair's eyes widened. And they've linked themselves to it. They're not just commanding it, Ilvin said. They're becoming part of it. Across the stars, strange phenomena began to appear. Space folds where there had never been gravitational fields. Light trails that moved faster than any known drive. Even stars themselves dimmed when the pulse passed near them, as if reacting to the rhythm. The galaxy's most advanced sensors couldn't interpret the data, but one thing was clear. The humans were no longer isolated. They were connected to something vast, and it was spreading. Back on Earth, deep beneath the Atlantic Command Complex, the human officer stood in silence before a massive holographic sphere. Around him, the walls pulsed gently in sync with the same red rhythm. "Is it awake?" he asked. A quiet female voice answered through the comms. "Not fully. It's still stabilizing across the outer sectors." He nodded slowly. "And the Council?" "They're afraid. They think we've built a weapon." He stared at the hologram as the faint outline of the ancient being rippled across its surface. "Good, fear keeps them cautious. We're not ready for what's coming." "What is coming?" the voice asked. He looked out at the faint glimmer of stars beyond the glass. "Whatever triggered the signal in the first place. We didn't build this thing, we just woke it up. And something out there is answering." Far beyond the galaxy's edge, a ripple moved through dark space, so faint that even human sensors struggled to track it. But it carried one unmistakable signature, the same energy frequency as the human fleet inverted, a mirror signal. It was older, colder, and it was moving closer. When Dr. Ilvin received the readings, his hand shook. "That's not them," he whispered. "It's a response." The chair turned toward him, eyes filled with dread. "You're saying there's another one?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, another civilization. Or maybe the creators of whatever the humans found. And they've just realized their old weapon is awake again." As if to confirm his words, the galaxy's outer stations began transmitting emergency alerts. The deep field arrays detected massive distortions in the dark void, structures moving between dimensions like waves rising through a calm sea. The Council's fleet scrambled, but their ships were blind against the interference. The pulse from Earth was growing louder, now resonating through the entire galactic network. It wasn't a threat, it was a beacon. At that moment, across the entire galaxy, every human fleet activated its engines, not to attack, to align. The massive being behind them opened its eyes, two colossal lights that illuminated space like twin suns, and released a sound that rippled through the stars. It wasn't mechanical. It was alive, and it was calling to something far beyond. Dr. Ilvin stared at the feed, barely breathing. "They've sent a message," the chair asked softly. "To who?" He swallowed. "To whatever's coming, to let it know humanity isn't prey anymore." And in that moment, a second distant pulse answered. This one wasn't red, but cold white. Older, slower, and filled with an energy that made every council system flicker in terror. Humanity had awakened something ancient, and now something far older had heard them. The humans hadn't started a war. They had just called one home. The galaxy trembled as the two signals collided, one pulsing red with human instinct, the other white with an ancient, inhuman calm. Space itself rippled between them like fabric stretched too thin. Every sensor across the Council's network went blind, unable to process what was happening. For a heartbeat, there was only silence and then light, so bright it bled across every system. Stars dimmed, ships lost power. The pulse spread across time and distance, echoing through dimensions no one understood. On the edge of the Sol system, the human fleet stood their ground. Their ships, once small and fragile, now shone like living extensions of the being behind them. The massive entity had fully awakened, its wings spanning the void, pulsing with synchronized rhythm. Every human vessel moved in perfect unison with its breath. The white pulse from beyond the galaxy grew closer, forming shapes within the darkness. Titanic constructs older than any species alive. They moved with purpose, drawn toward the red pulse like predators sensing a challenge. Inside Earth's command complex, the human officer stood before the holographic sphere, watching both signals converge. His hands trembled not from fear but from understanding. "This is what the Council never realized," he said quietly. "We weren't preparing for them. We were preparing for this." The voice from the comm spoke again, calm but sharp. "We've confirmed it. The returning signal isn't a fleet, it's a recall, a failsafe left behind by whoever built this system. They've come to reclaim it." The officer turned toward the observation window, the reflection of the red glow filling his eyes. "Then we'll show them that humanity doesn't return what it's earned." Across the stars, the Council's fleet struggled to maintain position as gravitational currents twisted their ships apart. The chair clutched the edge of the command table. "Are the humans attacking?" Dr. Ilvin shook his head, staring at the feed. "No, they're resonating. They're trying to stabilize the field. They're holding the structure back." "Why would they do that?" "Because if those things reach the core, none of us survive." The Council chamber fell silent as the realization spread. Humanity wasn't the threat, they were the shield. The first of the white entities emerged fully from the void. They weren't ships, they were forms of living light, their bodies shaped like elongated wings and spines of crystal. They moved in graceful silence, yet their presence tore through physics itself. When the leading construct approached the human line, the awakened being behind them, now clearly alive, released a deep, harmonic sound. The two titans met at the edge of Sol space, one red and alive, one white and ancient. The moment their energies collided, the galaxy shook. A surge of light expanded outward, swallowing stars. Human ships held formation, amplifying the pulse through their link. Every captain felt it, not through orders but through instinct. A shared human emotion pulsed across the fleet. "We stand together." The white construct tried to overwhelm the signal, its energy cold and mechanical. But humanity's pulse was not algorithmic. It was heart, rhythm, chaos, and purpose. Every emotion, every memory, every act of survival merged into one voice that echoed through the void. And for the first time in known history, something ancient hesitated. In the council hall, the chair stared at the readings. Their synchronization rate, it's surpassing theoretical limits. Dr. Ilvin smiled faintly, eyes glistening. "Because they're not machines anymore. They're alive." The red and white pulses collided again, each strike lighting up the stars like thunder. The ancient construct tried to absorb the human signal, but every attempt only strengthened it. Humanity's resonance fed on willpower, on defiance, on the unyielding instinct to live. The massive being behind the humans roared, shaking dimensions themselves. And then suddenly the white entities stopped. They hovered there as if analyzing something. The council's monitors began to pick up translated code from their frequencies. A message, short, simple. "Successor species confirmed." The council's jaws dropped. Dr. Ilvin leaned forward. "They're not here to destroy, they're transferring control." The human officer back on Earth stood frozen as the holographic sphere changed color, from red to gold. The pulse stabilized. The massive being folded its wings, its glow softening. The invading white entities began to dissolve into streams of light, merging into the galactic field. The storm of gravity eased. For the first time in centuries, the stars fell silent. The human fleet floated in perfect stillness. No weapons, no movement. Just a sense of quiet awe. Then slowly new data appeared on every screen. Coordinates, thousands of them. Each marking dormant installations scattered across the universe. Remnants of the same ancient network. Humanity now held the key to them all. The council finally opened communication. "Human command, do you read?" The reply came through calm and clear, loud and clear. "The anomaly has withdrawn." The chair's voice softened. "Then it's over?" The human officer paused. "For now." But even as he spoke, deep in the command room, one of the technicians gasped. "Sir, there's another signal. Inside the core system." The holographic sphere flickered. The golden pulse turned faintly crimson again, slower, darker. The AI systems began translating automatically. The message was written in Terran Standard, but not by any known human source. Observation complete. Predator mode, permanent. The lights in the chamber dimmed. Across the human fleet, every vessel shimmered briefly, their hulls pulsing in the same deep red. The synchronization didn't fade, it deepened. The ancient being above Earth opened its eyes once more, but this time it didn't move. It simply watched. Dr. Ilvin, observing from the council chamber, felt his chest tighten. They've become the new anchor. The system didn't vanish, it bonded with them. Humanity didn't win the war, they became the inheritance, the chair whispered, almost in disbelief. So they've ascended? Ilvin nodded slowly. Or evolved into what the galaxy always feared they could become. The last transmission from Earth echoed across the stars. The network is quiet now. We don't know what happens next, but the signal is alive inside us. And as the galaxy returned to calm, the Council's deep-range sensors caught one last image. Earth glowing faintly red from orbit, its heartbeat pulsing through the dark. A single line of human text followed across the network, looping endlessly. We were never the predators. We were the guardians. The hunt begins when the next threat arrives. Then the feed went silent, leaving the galaxy in awe and in fear of what humanity had become. The galaxy entered a strange kind of peace after that day. For the first time in recorded history, the Council fleet stood down without a treaty, without victory, and without defeat. Every system reported the same thing: silence and a faint red pulse that echoed softly through deep space. The humans had vanished from open communication once again, retreating behind a quiet veil of coded frequencies. But they hadn't disappeared. They had changed. The Galactic Council spent weeks reviewing the recordings from the encounter, the merging of the ancient being with the human fleet, the withdrawal of the white entities, and the final message: predator mode, permanent. Entire think tanks tried to explain it. Some called it transcendence. Others said it was integration, evolution, or ascension. But none could deny one simple truth: humanity was no longer the same species the galaxy once knew. Dr. Ilvin sat in the observation hall long after the meetings ended. The lights were dim, the great holographic star map flickering faintly above him. The pulse, the human pulse, still resonated across the map. It was gentle now, not a warning, but a heartbeat. "They've become part of it," he said softly to the chair who stood beside him. "Not overlords, not gods, just connected." The chair nodded slowly. "And the others?" "Gone back to wherever they came from," Ilvin replied. "The white constructs were guardians too, I think. They were waiting for someone capable of holding the balance again." He paused, watching as the stars glimmered faintly red. Now that burden belongs to humanity. In the weeks that followed, the Council tried to re-establish normal operations. Trade routes reopened. Patrols resumed. Life began to move again, but not quite as before. Every ship, every station, every system could still sense the pulse. It moved through hyperspace like a song, soft and steady. It wasn't oppressive or threatening. It felt protective, as though something vast and unseen was quietly watching over them. For the first time in centuries, piracy dropped to zero. Border wars ceased without orders. Even the black markets of the outer worlds reported that something unseen was intercepting their more dangerous trades. Ships that tried to smuggle weapons or enslave colonies were found adrift. Systems disabled. Crews unharmed but shaken. Every one of them reported seeing the same thing before their systems shut down: a flash of red light, shaped like an eye. The Council never confirmed it, but everyone knew who it was. Humanity had not left the galaxy. They were simply moving in silence, guiding it from the shadows. On Earth, the world looked peaceful. Oceans shimmered again, skies clear of pollution, cities glowing in golden light. Humanity had built something extraordinary, a living network that extended far beyond their planet. The massive being above Earth still hovered in orbit, its vast form now quiet and calm, blending with the sunlight. To the ordinary people below, it was a symbol of protection, a silent guardian watching over them. Children pointed at it with wonder. No one feared it anymore. Inside the command complex, the same human officer stood once more before the great holographic sphere. Now its glow was gentle and warm, the color of a setting sun. "Status?" he asked. All systems stable, the technician replied. Pulse synchronized across all sectors. No external disturbances detected. He nodded, but his gaze stayed fixed on the hologram. Deep within its light, faint lines of ancient code continued to move, unreadable to anyone but the network itself. It still communicates, he murmured. Even now, yes, sir. But it doesn't respond to us directly anymore. It's listening. The officer smiled faintly. Maybe that's what we were meant to do all along, listen. He turned to the viewport. Earth glowed beneath him, and far beyond, the stars pulsed softly in time with the planet's rhythm. Humanity had become the galaxy's quiet heartbeat, a living part of the balance that once kept civilizations from collapsing. They had inherited something ancient, and unlike those before them, they didn't wield it for dominance. They wielded it for harmony. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, the Council prepared to visit Earth again. After much debate, they sent a single envoy ship, unarmed and carrying nothing but an offer of alliance. As it approached Seoul, the ship's instruments detected the pulse growing stronger. Then, just as they entered orbit, a voice filled their communications, calm, human, and familiar. Welcome to Terran space. No weapons detected. You may proceed. The envoy hesitated. This is Ambassador Rihan of the Galactic Council. We come in peace. Then peace is what you'll find, the voice replied. Follow the pulse. Their ship was guided through what looked like a vast corridor of light. The giant guardian being hovered nearby, its eyes glowing softly as if observing. It didn't move. It only watched, peaceful and aware. The envoy's crew was silent, awestruck. They had expected weapons and fleets, but instead they found calm order and quiet strength. When they landed, the humans greeted them not as victors, but as equals. There were no parades, no displays of power, just conversation, understanding, and shared memory. The envoy asked the question every council member had wanted to know. What is the predator mode now? What does it mean for the galaxy? The officer smiled gently. It's not what it was. The instinct remains, but it's no longer about war or survival. It's awareness. It's the ability to sense danger before it spreads, to protect before destruction begins. The envoy frowned slightly. So you've become guardians? Something like that, the officer replied. We didn't choose it. It chose us. But maybe that's what humanity was always meant to be, the balance between instinct and creation. Later, when the Council's envoy returned, they brought a single message recorded from the humans. It was played before the entire assembly. Every delegate silent as the words echoed through the hall. Every species fears the unknown. Every world hides its instinct behind reason. But survival, unity, and compassion, they are not opposites. They are the same pulse that keeps existence alive. We did not conquer. We listened. And now the galaxy has a heartbeat again. After the message ended, there was no debate, no politics, only quiet acceptance. The Council finally understood that the humans had become something greater than an empire. They had become the foundation of balance itself. The galaxy would never again dismiss them as impulsive or primitive. They were the ones who had faced the oldest threat and survived not through dominance but through connection. Years passed, and the pulse never stopped. It became part of the galaxy's rhythm, woven into communication systems, planetary fields, even the natural cycles of suns. The pulse was now life itself, a quiet, gentle reminder that the humans were still there, unseen, guiding from afar. Dr. Ilvin retired from the Council not long after. He moved to a small research station orbiting a quiet blue world. Every night he looked up at the stars and felt the pulse through his instruments. It was soothing, constant, alive. He recorded one final note before his last transmission. Humans taught us that strength isn't dominance, it's understanding. The universe doesn't need rulers. It needs guardians who remember what it means to feel. And on Earth, the great being above the planet remained still, its form slowly blending with the stars, no longer a weapon, but a watcher. Beneath it, humanity thrived, not as conquerors, but as caretakers of the vast, interconnected life they now felt responsible for. Children grew up learning the story of the day the Galactic Council witnessed humanity's predator mode. But in the end, they didn't speak of war. They spoke of the moment the galaxy remembered its heartbeat. Somewhere deep in the void, a soft whisper echoed through the network, a signal older than time, faint and distant. Observation continues. The humans smiled when they received it. The Guardians were still out there, and now, they were not alone. And as the stars pulsed in unison, the galaxy itself seemed to breathe once more, a living, endless rhythm, carried by the species that had once been underestimated, feared, and overlooked. Humanity had not conquered the stars. They had become their heart.